Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday, where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Good for Bitcoin. My name is Brandon, social media manager here at Trust Machines, joined by my co-host, Kate. Happy Friday, Kate.
Hey, Brandon. How's it going?
It's going good. We have a very special show today. We got a special guest, Charlie, who many know as CB Spears, is going to be joining us in just a little bit to talk about all this knots drama that's been going around and hard forks on Bitcoin. And there's some fake news out there. So I think Charlie's going to help us get to the bottom of it in a little bit, which is going to be very exciting. But we have a lot more news to get through. We're going to rapid fire through a couple things first, and then we'll have Charlie on in a little bit.
Let's do it. Yeah, I'm so excited for this. You told me last night he was joining the show, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a good one. This is needed. So yeah, let's get through it and get to the good stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about some Leather updates first. Very exciting for all the meme coin communities on Stacks. We have some more token support.
Yeah, basically we started pulling data from Alex Labs, Valor, and Bitflow. So we had around 30 token prices that were available for different meme coins, and now we have over 80. So think like Rue Coin, Flat Earth, Skull Coin, Meme, Miami Coin, which I don't know if that's still a thing, but it has a pretty high market cap.
People are still holding on.
They are. I was on Stacks Tools, just looking through the highest market caps. And I was like, what is this? This is so funny. But yeah, it's great. I mean, if you hold something in your wallet, you obviously want to be able to see sort of the price and all of the, metrics associated with that coin. So this just makes it a little bit easier. So check that out in mobile. Let us know if your coin is now showing.
Yeah, that's great. I know we've gotten a lot of requests in the past for people that are like, why isn't, whatever meme coin they're holding, showing with the nice photo and the nice USD price and everything in my wallet. And just very cool that we have that now. Let's get into some public company news. We'll rapid fire through a couple acquisitions, and then we'll cut to Charlie because I think he's down there waiting for us right now. Yeah, first wanted to talk about, I think we've been talking about some acquisitions lately. So this is a new one. Vivek Ramaswamy's company, which is Strive, has announced that they are going to be acquiring Semler Scientific in a $1.34 billion all stock deal. So Semler currently holds 5,816 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And then Strive, along with this announcement, they also announced this week that they had acquired 5,816 BTC. I'm seeing that there's maybe a typo in my notes because I think they acquired a slightly different number, but altogether it's around that price. Altogether, they will hold a combined 10,900 BTC after the acquisition. Eric Semler is expected to join the board of directors at this new combined company. And post-merger, they say they intend to explore monetizing or distributing Semler Scientific's, what they quote, historically profitable diagnostic business at a future date. So they might be spinning that off or doing something, who knows. But yeah, more acquisitions and mergers, and all these Bitcoin treasury companies are, consolidating, which is very interesting to see.
Then we have Capital B. They have acquired 551 BTC. I'm not sure what that brings their total to, but it's a good...
Yeah, and then Metaplanet, same. They bought 5,400, and that's a pretty big amount. And then I saw this quote from David Bailey. We talked about Nakamoto last week, but he sort of confirmed it in this tweet this week, where he said that we are combining the number one Bitcoin media company, which is BTC Inc., who is the owner of the Bitcoin conference in the US, for example, and the number one Bitcoin hedge fund, which is UTXO Management, with a public company holding a massive Bitcoin treasury, which is, of course, Nakamoto. So it seems like all of these companies that David Bailey has are all going to be swallowed up by Nakamoto pretty soon, which is, again, very interesting. Lots of acquisitions and mergers and
Yeah.
all these different things happening.
I can imagine they'll just try and keep acquiring other sort of like Bitcoin treasury companies as well, because they're just eating up every other facet of Bitcoin companies. So pretty cool.
And if they're not, acquiring them, they're at least like investing in them, right? We've seen
with
like
Metaplanet, they are.
Yeah, Metaplanet, Treasury.
Yep.
Probably a few others as well. So yeah, there's a lot of that going around. Okay, we have a few more things to talk about. We're gonna rapid fire through a couple stacks related news. The first one is SBTC is now listed on the crypto exchange Gate. So this is the first exchange listing for SBTC. More to come, of course, but it's very exciting that we're seeing some progress get made there. Initially, it's trading pairs SBTC and USDT, but yeah, more to come. But very exciting to see progress being made by the BD team to get SBTC listed on more exchanges.
Yeah, very cool. And they're obviously a huge global exchange. But I think it'll just be great to see more trading pairs. I feel like that's a good step forward.
Totally. We had the Stacks Labs CMO job listing has been posted. That's very exciting. Of course, it's something that's been demanded by the community for a while now. So very exciting to see that go live. And you'll have to go, for everybody that's listening, go see Alex Miller's post about it and then go read through the job listing. I think the one thing that's really cool that it specifically calls out is like, you do not need to have been a CMO to apply for this position. They really want to capture if you have experience with growth, like they want to talk to you about it. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna skip forward and then we'll skip back to well, actually, do you want to talk about this really good article that Vitalik published this week on what he calls low risk DeFi, which is super interesting. And you wrote a little bit more about it, so I'm gonna throw it over to you.
Yeah, so I mean, he published this I guess it's a blog. And as you're reading through it, like there's nothing that you can disagree with except for the fact that it's built on Ethereum. So he's basically pointing out this like disconnect that has been happening in Ethereum where there's all these profitable apps, but they kind of feel meaningless and hollow. So it's like a lot of NFTs and meme coins and speculative yield farming DeFi. And then there's mission-driven apps, which, align a lot more with values that people like feel good and comfortable about, but they don't generate enough fees. And I think a lot of this was really caused by just being in the early stages of DeFi, where there's, a lot of code bugs and Oracle failures, and there's bubbles and just a lot of speculation. And then there was also a lot of regulation that you and I have covered a lot on this show, where it really punished financial apps that were trying to do good and build like useful products, and it kind of rewarded more useless speculative apps that were very unclear but were able to operate. And so he's basically going through this article saying it's finally that time to bridge the gap. Low risk DeFi is here, and by low risk, what he's talking about is payments and savings with stable but not like crazy high returns, fully collateralized lending, and then other synthetic assets that would be tied to mainstream markets. So it's kind of that time because a lot of protocols are maturing. Apps have been around for some time now, so they have some more security and stability. And he's also talking about how like people around the world, the risks that they would have in traditional finance are kind of now higher than a lot of risks that are present in on-chain decentralized systems. So it's, again, a really great article, but as you're reading through it, if you're a Bitcoiner, you're agreeing with it, but you're like, yeah, this sounds good, but this would be so much better if it was on Bitcoin. And, Bitcoin is the safest asset. It has the deepest liquidity pools of idle capital. And we've built this culture of durability, trust, sort of conservatism. And so as you're reading through it, especially if you're in Stacks, you're like, wow, that's like exactly sort of the mindset that we're having, that we want to unlock with a lot of the programmability that we're building on Stacks. And I feel it's just like a narrative that would really resonate with a lot of Bitcoiners, but people in Stacks and probably other DeFi layer 2s as well. So I'm sure you've read through it. I'm sure you agree with it as well, but it was just like a really good a thought piece.
Yeah, definitely a good read. For those that don't know, Vitalik, before founding Ethereum, he was, I think, editor-in-chief at Bitcoin
Yeah.
Magazine.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep.
he has a lot of these ideals of Bitcoin, right? Of being like, I guess, low risk, and he has a lot of that still, even though he is on Ethereum. And yeah, I think, we have a little bit of bias, right? Because we're at Trust Machines and we are building apps like Granite. And like reading through this article, I was thinking a lot about how Granite pitches itself in terms of like kind of being that low risk DeFi option, right? Like
Yep.
Bitcoin is that pristine asset that you never want to sell and you want to hold on to, and you always want to make sure that it's safe. And, if you're gonna deploy that Bitcoin in like a DeFi environment, obviously you don't want to, go through unnecessary risks. So I was thinking a lot about Granite and how it pitches itself. But it just, yeah, like you said, it applies to not just the Stacks ecosystem, but just like a lot of other layers that are trying to build on top of Bitcoin. Like those concepts, I think, are just Bitcoin concepts. So if you're building on top of Bitcoin across all these different layers, it's yeah, definitely a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel Bitcoin is very much the established low risk chain. Obviously, like some of the things that Charlie was talking about, like it's kind of challenging to build on Bitcoin, but once you kind of unlock that, it just like that is what we're optimizing for is, I don't think any Bitcoiner is like, we need 30% yields and we need like, we kind of just want like to hold our money to make it work for us in the safest, most trusted way possible. And Ethereum has always kind of been that like experimental world computer kind of vibes, but I don't know, it just makes sense for this to be built on Bitcoin.
100%. Well, speaking of other layers, we got like 3 more news stories to cover. I know this is maybe the longest show that we've ever done. I think what we'll probably actually do is when we publish this on the podcast, we might like split
Part one,
Charlie's
part
episode
two.
up into
Yeah.
like a different show or something.
Yep.
Have his own show.
I
That
like
maybe
it.
makes more sense. But yeah, speaking of other layers, this one's cool. Botanix Labs unveiled STBTC this week, and I thought it was super interesting. I posted about it. Botanix is a Bitcoin L2 that has EVM capability. They unveiled this week a 1-to-1 BTC backed token that redistributes 50% of the network transaction fees on Botanix back to their holders as yield. So the one thing, if you're comparing this between like Botanix versus Stacks, is the STBTC on Botanix must be staked in order to accrue yield. So that's a pretty big difference compared to like SBTC rewards, where just by being in your wallet, you're earning. Founder, CEO of Botanix, Willem Schro, said in an interview he expects APYs to stabilize around 5 to 6% in the future. And yeah, I just thought it was super interesting, just like how these different layers are finding different models and different ways to basically allow Bitcoiners to earn more Bitcoin, taking like the transaction fees and redistributing it back to their holders. I think is just like a super interesting method of doing that.
Yeah, that's super cool. I'll need to dig into this a little bit more. I've like heard of them. Sometimes it's like hard to know how all the mechanics works, and especially because there are so many layers developing now. I listened to the Casey and Aaron's Money on all the layers, which I don't think is the most like informative, but it just goes to show like how creative people are getting with layers on Bitcoin and all the different options out there.
100%. Yeah, Botanix is a side system as defined by Bitcoin layers. Just some quick stats. They have about 161 BTC bridged in, managed by a federation of 16 publicly known signers compared to 14 on Stacks. Some similarities there from a trust perspective, I guess. But if you want to learn a little bit more about Botanix, Bitcoin Layers has a really good write-up on it. It's a good place to start.
Very cool.
Okay. South Korean tech giant Naver has announced that they are going to be acquiring the exchange Upbit. They're going to be doing it, I guess, through a stock swap in their digital finance push that they're trying to do. They're basically yeah, it's going to allow them to expand into digital finance. It includes launching a Korean won-backed stablecoin. Upbit is the largest crypto exchange in South Korea by trading volume and customer base. And yeah, the merger just kind of aims to position Naver as a global player in the fintech industry. I think they're trying to do like the super app kind of thing through this acquisition. So pretty interesting. And their stock rose over 11% following that news. So
very cool. This made me think of how stablecoins are going to like unlock a lot of currency exchanges. Like if you're traveling and stuff like this, just being able to like swap stablecoins depending on whatever country you're in, and like how that space will develop is quite interesting to me. I mean, I've tried to like send currencies to different countries, and it's always a headache. Even between Canada and the US, I've not found like a super simple way to do this. So like obviously, but like when I'm sending USDC or like crypto between people who are into crypto, it's much more easy. People who are not into crypto, it's like a very challenging system to navigate. So this would be very cool to see how this develops, and if it kind of like removes the crypto layer from it. But what I mean is like, will you even know you're interacting with crypto, or is it kind of just like a, very intuitive experience?
Totally. Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, I'm reminded of that like anytime that I travel internationally. I'm like, oh my God, like the conversion rates between different currencies and stuff. It's a lot.
Yeah.
In more stablecoin news, Cloudflare is getting into the stablecoin arena. They had actually two announcements this week. One is that they're launching their own stablecoin, which I thought was super interesting because they are like a very Web 2, right, infrastructure kind of company. They also announced this initiative with Coinbase that they're launching called the X402 Foundation. And it's designed to be this universal standard for what they call AI-driven payments, but I think it's just like payments in general, not just AI ones. Why is it called X402? It basically leverages the HTTP error 402, which is payment required, which so far hasn't really been used at all. For those that don't know what the heck I just said, you might be familiar with like other HTTP errors like error 404, which is like not found when you like go to a website that doesn't exist, and it gives you like a 404 error, 403 forbidden. If you like can't like authenticate on a website, it gives you an error. So there's this other error called 402, which is payment required, and it hasn't been used even though like the back end for it exists. So that's what this X402 Foundation is trying to do, is trying to build around this HTTP 402 status code, and it'll allow users to pay for resources through an API that they're going to build without registrations or emails or OAuth or complicated signatures. Basically like crypto, right? You don't need any of that stuff with crypto, so it's going to be like crypto native. Which is pretty interesting. A couple bullet points that I also wanted to highlight in their announcement. They said X402 as a protocol has zero fees for either the customer or the merchant. So it's very much going to be like an open protocol that they're building. And X402 is not tied to any specific blockchain or token. It's a neutral standard open to integration by all. So we could potentially see like stacks get integrated with this in the future, right? And other Bitcoin layers and stuff. So super interesting. I think like for those that don't know, like Cloudflare, they kind of power a majority of the internet. There's been like a few, instances in the past few years where like Cloudflare's servers have gone down, which like in turn knocked down like half of the internet. They're a huge company that powers a lot of the internet. So to see them kind of get behind this and partner with Coinbase on it is very interesting and pretty cool.
Yeah, this is very cool. On the surface, it was like kind of confusing to me, but then I dug into it a little bit, and it basically just seems like if you're navigating, whatever websites, and you hit like a paywall, instead of it, kind of like you said, instead of like needing to like sign up and create an account and add your credit card and all of this stuff, you just connect whatever wallet you're working with, and if it, if it accepts Stacks, then you could connect your Stacks wallet, pay for it, and now you have access to whatever it is that you're trying to access. That's kind of the gist of it.
Totally. Yeah. So you're trying to like access something on the web that requires a payment. And this is just like a very open, very neutral standard that they're trying to push. So yeah, cool stuff.
Awesome.
Okay. That I think wraps up our record long show. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thank you again also to Charlie. That was super interesting and just really awesome to just get a wide ranging look on Luke.
Yeah.
What,
also, so like an on the ground perspective, someone who's like deep in those trenches and can kind of understand the nuances of what's going on, because it can be very confusing if you're just trying to read everyone's tweets and you're like, what is the context here? So that was awesome.
100%. Yeah, Charlie's like the perfect person to have on to discuss something like this, because he's like you said, he's in the trenches, he's on the technical side, he's on the
memes,
the more normal people side, I guess. So he gets it. So yeah, thanks again. Okay, we'll see y'all next week. Thanks for tuning in, and have a good weekend.
Awesome. See you guys.
Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.